Hello everyone, my name is Desmond, Senior Regional Product Manager for Epson Singapore, and thank you for joining today's webinar. Before we begin today's webinar, there are some house rules we would like you to take note of. First of all participants are muted throughout the webinar session. If you have a question during the presentation, please type your question using the Q&A option located right below. Our product specialist will answer you as soon as possible. If you encounter any technical difficulties, please get our attention by using the raise hand option. This webinar will take about 60 minutes. Be reminded that all attendees are to use your real names to confirm on your attendance. Do expect some lag in the video playback, but your local representatives will be sending you the video upon request. Finally, we would like to request you to participate in a short survey at the end of today's session to improve your overall experience for our next webinar. Startups or businesses need to know that printing workflow can be made easy if you have the right tools and equipment. Today, we are honored to have Mr. James Tan, one of the most sought-after printmakers in the Asia-Pacific region, specializing in fine art printing, share how printing can be made easy and understand what a workflow is all about. Without further ado, I shall now hand over the time to Mr. James Tan.
Hi, I'm James, and I'm very glad to be invited by Epson to give a short sharing for this summit. So today, I'll be talking a little bit about my journey with the Epson large format printers and giving a short demonstration of how I do my fine art prints in the workflow. A little bit about myself. I've been using Epson since Epson Stylus Pro came out in 1994 or 95. Because back then I was doing a little bit of graphic editing with Photoshop that just came to PC. I do game graphic editing. We do the pixel, editing sort of stuff that we zoom out to see the big picture and we zoom in again, all those fun stuff back then. And it was back then when I noticed that I can't really enjoy the picture on a screen as much as I do a print, because I was into comics, I was into manga, I was into anime, and I really like to feel the print, the picture in my hands and experience the image, in a physical sense, as opposed to looking at it every day on a screen. So after editing the images, I would always like to print them out. So when the Epson Stylus Pro came with its 720 DPI printing, it was a really, it kind of started me on this printing journey that I got deeper and deeper into and kind of carried on until now. So between that and now, I went to school. I was trained as a mechanical engineer. I went to Army. When I left Army, I was actually studying computer engineering, which I felt wasn't really my thing. Although yes, I like computers, but photography came very, very naturally to me. So I started to be a photographer. I was trained as a commercial photographer in a commercial photography studio. And I came out in 2006 on my own to do industrial photography and architectural photography. So it was in 2007 when I had to take some qualifications for the Master Photographer Association of the UK that we needed very, very high quality photographic prints. And that's when we discovered that, okay, Singapore didn't have anyone who offered that kind of service, so we had to do it ourselves. So a bunch of us, we were taking the exam together, and one of the guys, they're like, okay, let's buy the latest printer that Epson has. And we got a 11880, which is an awesome printer, by the way, and since I had experience in printing, I was put in charge of manning that printer, and the printer is still around. It's still chugging along, and it's still giving me really good prints and still serving me and my clients to this day. With that short introduction, I would like to move on to the next step, which is my experiences with large format printing. So So these large format printers can be found in three main sectors in the printing industry. The first is where they were normally supposed to be in the prepress industry. So Epson printers have been incredibly consistent in terms of output and color. That's why they are used in prepress industry to create proofs for clients to sign off. And then we have the commercial printing industry where all types of printing, it's kind of in that segment, from banner printing to billboard printing to poster to exhibition, fine art printing, that's where I am, and to even name card printing. So all these fall under commercial printing. And then lastly, we have personal printing, where actually in the recent years there's an increase of photographers, serious hobbyists, who have been buying large format printers to put in their own homes or studios to print basically their own picture. That's where I kind of started off, because I know I'm speaking to a wide range of audience here. Folks from the prepress industry, you are here because this is a summit. Commercial printing industry, you are here. And hobbyists, you are here too. So I'll kind of introduce, give a little short intro about each industry to everyone, so that we know how ubiquitous this large format printer is in the printing scene. Okay, so first I want to show you a little diagram of how a printing press workflow is. Right, so looking at it, it's kind of complicated because that is what it is. So prepress guys, this is no surprise to you. You're probably in a pretty big company. You have all sorts of printing machines. You have the big 4-color press, 4 or more color press, including the spot color ones. And then you have the LFPs, which gives you the contract proof. So it is here that the LFPs exist, and they are extremely important to the printing workflow because they create what the industry calls contract proofs. And as what their name suggests, they're supposed to represent the final product in a very accurate way that clients can sign off on. It is what printing companies show clients and tell them that, okay, this is what you can expect, and this is what it will be. Therefore, when you sign, you are entering into a service contract with the printing company. And if these printing proofs are not accepted by the clients, nothing can happen. So they don't go on to the 4-color press unless the printing proofs are accepted. So yeah, it's a pretty big thing. So next, we have commercial printing, which involves taking pictures, images, or even design, graphics, and using printers to turn them into profit. So it is a purely business venture, all these commercial printing entities. I'm one of them. So I specialize in fine art printing. What is that? Fine art printing is when I take high quality images from my clients, mostly photographs, and using cutting edge techniques, image processing methods, and turning it into basically fine art prints where there are limited edition, and technically we have to consider them to be pretty flawless in every aspect. There's a range of media and different type of paper that I use to give to bring out and express my clients' images in the best way possible. And to do that, we need a very consistent output from our printers. The quality of the printer is very important in this case because it is what determines the quality of output. When we are printing large banners, probably billboard size banners, we are not looking at very high resolution. And UV printers, UV banner printers, they will be able to produce that kind of print. But fine art printing requires a very, very high resolution print. It requires large color gamut so that we can accurately reproduce what the camera has captured, or reproduce colors that we put in into the picture through the editing process. All right. And lastly, we have personal printing. This is where I started. I take my own pictures and I try to turn them into works of art, which I can display in my own home, I can display in my office, I can display in a gallery, or I can have them sold. As we all know, people who go who are into personal printing are usually first-time printmakers. So most of the time, during our early years, we get something like this. The output is normally not what we expect it to be, right? And that is because printing is a work chain. It's a workflow that's a lot like a chain. When you do something wrong or something is not optimal at one point of the chain, it kind of snowballs and you get a very different result at the end of the day or at the end of the whole workflow, right? So I'll be talking a little bit about that as we move on, and I'll be showing you my workflow and my work chain on how I produce fine art prints in a bit. So to recap, here are the three big sectors. Pre-press workflow, where color accuracy and consistency is desired. Commercial printing, where fast and efficient prints are desired. And the print have to be of reasonable quality according to what the client wants or the client desires. Okay, and lastly, we have personal printing, where we are constantly looking for the highest quality prints that we can produce, because we have invested a lot in our camera systems. We have invested a lot in the capturing of the photograph. We have invested a lot of time into editing the images, and therefore the print is the final proof of everything that we have done. So that's that. Okay, at this point I want to do a little bit of candid sharing that printing is perhaps not the easiest thing in the world. So like you saw earlier, things can go really wrong if you miss out just one step, right? And a lot of it has got to do with the software that controls the printer, because I need to say that the printer is the most honest and color accurate device in the whole color management workflow. And it is because of this characteristic, the software that we use to process the image, to control the color, is very, very critical to the outcome. And I need to say, through the years, Epson have been evolving their workflow and making it more efficient and easy to use. And I'll show you in a bit what I mean by this. Before I move on to my print demonstration, I want to share a little bit about color management workflow, because it is extremely important in printing. Because printing is all about, pictures with colors, even black and white. It's technically color. Okay, tonalities, the grayscale, they are part of color management, because in a non-linear, if the image is non-linearized, what you see as gray on the screen may come out as a lighter gray or darker gray than you would expect on a print. Having the screen to be calibrated accurately with a low delta E score is paramount in a printing workflow. Why is it paramount? Because what we are looking for is a what you see is what you get situation. Supposing the screen is not calibrated, it's showing you one color, and you print the image, it comes out, of course, not the same color as your screen is showing you, If your screen is not calibrated, the print definitely will not match the screen. And if the print output is not what you are actually expecting or what you desire, you actually have no idea on what to adjust in which direction, how to push the colors, how to manipulate the colors in order to get what you want at the end of the day. So having an accurate screen is paramount, is critical to a good print. All right, so with that, let's move on to the print demonstration. Let's go. Okay guys, so here I have prepared a couple of images for my print demonstration. Okay, so I think today I will use this picture taken in I think Ginza to do a demonstration. All right, so before I move on to making the print, there's a few things that we need to pay attention to when we are assessing an image for the print. First of which is over here, you see the dimensions of the image. We need to ensure that the image has sufficient resolution for the size that you're printing at. This image is 6000 by 4000, that roughly equates to 24 megapixels. That is pretty good for a A3 size image. Maybe A3 plus, A2 is a bit stretching it, but if you want to go for anything bigger, you need to use probably some enlargement software to pump up the pixels to give so that the software can generate a little bit more fill-in details so that it doesn't look so pixelated as when we do enlargement. That normally happens, but software have kind of solved it nowadays. The other important thing we need to take note of is the histogram. For those who are unfamiliar, the histogram shows a chart, a graph of all the pixels, the color values of all the pixels in the image. So on the left is what we call the absolute black wall, and on the right is the absolute white wall. So anything that hits either side will mean that your image have some pixels that are clipping. So if you see some very big spikes on the left, it means that a lot of areas in your picture have absolute blacks and there's no details in there. The same goes for if there's a spike here that touches the right side of the histogram, it means that there are some areas in your image that have blown up highlights and there's no information in there. So what you want to do is you want to use the shadow and highlight function of the develop module to kind of pull it back a little bit to recover the details. If you put your cursor over this, show shadow clipping, you will see on the screen some blue parts show up. If you click on it, the blue part will stay. Same goes for white. So if you click on it, the white part will stay. So this shows that there is no printable information in the blue parts and the white parts. If it's a little bit like this in the image, it's generally fine. There are some images where you create the image specifically with this effect in mind, like probably a high-key portrait, low-key portrait, or low-key product shot where you want an absolute black background. Yes, that is something that is desirable, and therefore you can expect that to happen. But for most situations like these environmental shots, you want as little pixels to be blown out or to be underexposed as little as possible. So this image has been pre-edited, and so I will move on to the print section. So up here, we will click the print tab, and so this shows you a preview of how your image will look in the paper size, paper dimension that you have selected. So the paper dimension that was predetermined here is an A4 piece of paper, and the printer is the Epson P9500 series. So the first thing you want to do here, because I do not want to print this image on an A4 paper, I want to print it on using a 24-inch roll of paper. So I'll need to change something, right? I go to page setup. That's the first thing we do. Over here, we will define which printer we are using. In this screen, we will be defining the printer that we are using and also the paper size. So you can ignore the portion at the bottom first. You want to click Properties, and that will bring you to the print dialog. So this part is something that Epson has created. So different printers have different print dialogs, and this one is specific to this particular Epson printer. So first of all, you need to make sure that you have selected the correct paper. So for this image, I want to use an Epson Hot Press Bright. That's the paper name. Sometimes when you're using third-party paper, you will not find their names here. But third-party paper manufacturers will often give you advice on which Epson equivalent paper you can use to select as a setting when you use that paper. So for example, I use probably Ilford Smooth Cotton. I can choose fine art paper, and I can select Velvet Fine Art, or I can select Ultra Smooth Fine Art paper. So both of these will work for Ilford Smooth Cotton. That's for an example. But now I'm going to select Hot Press Bright, which has its own preset. So after you select it, you see on the right hand side, you see that print quality level 4. The level is at 1200 dpi times 1200 dpi, and high speed is on. So high speed in this case doesn't mean that the print head travels very fast. It means that it's printing in both directions. It's a bi-directional printing. So as the print head travels in one direction, it sprays the ink, it lays down the ink on the paper, and as it travels backwards, it also lays down another layer of ink. So that's bi-directional printing, and we call it high-speed printing. If you're using some paper that you are not sure what is the thickness, or you're not sure about the characteristics of the paper, you might want to turn this off. All right, so that's a little bit of more advanced tip for you. So print mode is color. So over here you can select either color or advanced black and white, but the image is obviously color, and I want to print color, so I select color. Quality level, basically these options are just to define the resolution that the printer will be using to print the image. So right now, my image is probably less than 1200 dpi at this size that I want to print, so it's fine to leave it at 1002 times 1002. But if you have like 150 megapixel camera and you have a lot of details in your image, you might want to move to quality 5. All right. So next, make sure that the color mode is off. What this does is it tells the Epson driver not to engage color management on the printer side, because Lightroom is going to handle the color management. And generally that's what we want, because we do not want the printer to, to handle the color management part. It's not built for that, so it should not be doing that job. Source, okay, so I mentioned I want to use roll paper. I'll select roll paper, banner, because that's how I'm more familiar with this mode. I'll turn off save roll paper, and I will define my size right now. So in inches, so the paper width I'll be using is a 24-inch roll, so I'll put 24-inch here. Paper height, I can put probably 12-inch or 13-inch. Oh, we can always come back to this, so it's fine. So I'll put 12 here, and I will define my paper. All right, so this is just a name, It is not something that you have to, enter something very precisely. If not, something will go wrong. No, this is just a name for you to identify the paper size that you are creating right now. So let's say I'm using a 24-inch roll. I'll just say 24-inch roll. And I can come back to this and redefine it whenever I want. And I'll save it. So it ends up here, 24-inch roll, and I'll say OK. So right now, I just told the printer that I'll be using a 24-inch roll. Currently, it is 12 inches in height, but it can be, depending on how my picture shows up on the preview, I can change it later on. So I press OK. And over here, we can go to user defined. So over here, we just define a 24-inch roll, right? So we have to select 24-inch roll. It's user defined. I click OK. Okay, so this is 24-inch by 12-inch. Okay, so this is my user-defined paper size. So as you can see, this image is looking kind of weird on this very big piece of paper that I've defined. And so I will have to set the image size. So you can play the cell size here. So let's say I want to maximize this paper. Okay, one thing to note is try as much as you can to not print borderless, because what borderless does is that it causes the printer to start applying the ink before it reaches the edge of the paper, and so the ink will kind of end up in the gutters. And although it kind of maximizes your use of paper, it is not super practical at the end of the day, because when the paper comes out of the printer, you still have to handle it. And paper borders are a good way for you to handle the paper. So always print smaller than the paper that you want to use. So I'm giving it a good amount of paper border here. But I think my height is still too little. So I'll go back to page setup. I'll redefine my 24-inch. Maybe I'll give myself 16 inches instead. So 16-inch, save, override, OK. OK. So now I have 16 inches of height, and I can play with it, right? I'll run 12 inches in height. And maybe 18 inches in width. So yeah, this is probably what I want it to be. I can clear all my margins so that I have the image centered in the middle of the paper. And then scrolling down, you can put your watermark on the image if you want. Checking all these things will allow you to print different set of information onto your print, but we don't need any of those right now. Okay, next is print resolution. This is very, very important. You want to set the print resolution at the native resolution of the printer, means the hardware resolution of the printer. So in this case, I would like to set it to 600 because as we remember just now, we were setting the quality level. It shows you 1200 by 1200 dpi. When you divide that by 2, you get 600 by 600. You divide that by 2 on both sides when you square root it. The printing resolution should go from 300 to 600 to 1200 on this printer to 2400. Okay. On the older Epson printers, the multiples are in 360. So you go from 360 to 720 to 1440. All right. So for this printer, I'll put 600. Print sharpening, I'll turn it on, and because it's a matte paper, I'll select matte. And then lastly is color management. You want to load the correct profile, correct ICC profile for your paper. if you load the wrong ICC profile, the color adjustments and the color transformations will be slightly off and you will not get the color that you want. So when you cannot find your ICC profile, you can click on others and you can scroll through all the ICCs that you have here and try to find the one that's suitable for your paper. If it is not here, you can go to the manufacturer's website to download it. So it is hot press bright. Click OK, ensure that it's hot press bright. And the rendering intent, I keep it on relative. Perceptual is sometimes useful when you're dealing with a lot of colors on matte paper, because perceptual mode is used to constrain color space, to compress colors into the color space of the paper that you're using. But it does not give you accurate colors. It will try to make sure that all the colors will kind of fit in there in one way or another, shifting them a little bit around, jiggling them so that it fits, but it does not give you accurate colors. So relative color metric, relative intent is what you're looking for if you want to create a print that is matching your screen. Okay, so once we have properly set up the print workflow on Lightroom, all the settings here, we must go over to the printer to make sure that the printer is properly set up, the correct paper is loaded, and all the settings are okay. All right, let's go. All right, so now I have to check whether the Epson hot press is in the printer. If it is not, I have to change the paper. All right, so let me check. So what it reads here is Epson photo paper gloss 250, so it's not the paper I want. So I have to change the paper. I'll just remove the cover. Auto retracts. Right. I got to wrap this paper up. Okay. So this has become very easy to change. Take this out. Take this out. And I change to the hot press. Put this in. Okay, so when the paper has settled in, I will need to turn on the loading workflow. And then you see here that there's this little note here that tells me that, okay, I'm ready to insert the paper. So I have to inspect the paper to make sure it's clear of dirt and debris. So normally the first part of the paper would kind of be dirty, and it is our normal practice to actually cut away the dirty portion. But if it looks clean enough, and I'm very sure that my image area, the part where I'm going to be printing on, will not be affected, it's probably fine, but yeah, I will just cut away most of the paper which I suspect is not very good for printing after loading. Right, so once I hear the beep, the printer is ready, it has detected that the paper is in. Once I close the cover, it will start the loading process. I just need to change the paper type to hot press bright. Press OK. So in a bit you'll see me inspecting the paper, and then I will forward the paper a little bit, enough so that it is clean paper surface that I'll be printing on later. All right, almost done. Okay, cool. So I enter the feed and cut paper menu, and I can push the paper down ever so slightly. I can also turn on the light to help me see while doing this. So I'll extend the paper until the point where I see there's no dirt marks or anything above that line, and I'll engage the cutter to cut away the excess paper. Because if you do not do this step, you will end up having a little bit of your image on dirty paper, and you'll waste both paper and ink if you were to reprint it. So this is a pretty good step to follow. It wastes a little bit of paper, but it saves you a lot more resource. All right? So let's get back to print. Okay, so now with the printer properly set up, we'll run through all the settings one more time to confirm that it is showing what we want. So it's a 12 by 18 print or 18 by 12 print. It's a resolution at 600. The ICC is correct. And once we confirm all these details, we can go ahead and press print. Okay, now I'll go over to the printer and watch the print come out. All right. So now we are going to wait for the printing info to come over to the printer. And the light, as you can see, it auto turns on, and this is very important for me to check whether the print head is going to hit the paper. So this is something we absolutely want to avoid, right? When sometimes, you know, when we are using paper that curls up slightly, the print head may ram into it. That's what we call a head strike, and that is something we absolutely want to avoid. And having the lights here also lets us see whether there are any defects that that happen at the start of the print, so that we can immediately kill the print, prevent it from wasting more paper. If we have a 5-meter long print and an error starts right at the top, we are going to run into all sorts of problems down the road. Okay, so I've also put in the basket so that I can collect the paper, collect the print once it's printed. So normally when we have a very long print, we might use the take-up roll. These will auto roll the print as it comes out from the printer, but you need to set it. You need to do some settings to make use of it properly. So when we have anything between 1 meter to 3 meters long, we will let it run in front of the printer, so that we can also inspect and make sure nothing is going wrong with the print as it comes out. So the auto take-up roll is especially useful when we are using printers that are very big. So we don't have to manually roll the paper as it comes out. Very fast. Okay, so normally I will be wearing gloves, but this time around I don't have them with me. So this is also one of the reasons I advocate printing with large paper margin so that I can handle the print without damaging the image itself. Right, so I'm pretty happy with this print. No problem so far. All right, let's move on to the next print. Okay, so we are done with the printout from Lightroom. Next, I want to give a demonstration on the Epson H-Print RIP, which is the raster image processor. Let me drag over the window. So this is Epson's RIP that they're now giving out for free with their large format printers. It is actually a very powerful software. Last time it used to cost a couple of $1,000s per printer. So last time how they sell RIPs, those third-party companies, is that they sell it in terms of how big your printer is. So 24-inch RIP costs X amount of money, 44-inch RIP costs X amount of money. You have two 44-inch printers, you need to pay twice the amount of money. Yeah, so that's how it goes. So it's pretty impressive that Epson is giving this out for free with their large format printer. Okay, so one of the key elements of a RIP is what we call nesting. So it's very good for commercial printing labs when they have many pictures from different customers, but they're using the same type of paper. So they load all the images in at the same time and they do a nesting. So this software will adjust all the images into the paper size that's defined in the most efficient way possible. Okay, so for this demonstration, let me add, or maybe I will print another version of this image. All right, so this one was originally printed on a matte paper, on the Epson Hot Press Bright. So I think I would like to print this on a glossy paper to see how it looks like, on different surfaces. So I just load it in. And as you can see here, I've defined my paper as a 24-inch roll, and I can lay it out however I want. And select my paper. So I want to use a glossy paper. Right now, the printer is holding the previous paper that I used, which is the Hot Press Bright. So I will need to go over there to change the paper later on. So, but let us run through the settings first. Okay, so so the media type we want is glossy photo paper. And next we move on to the print quality, which by default it is 600 by 600 dpi, fine color, which I will want to change to 1200 by 1200 dpi, super fine color. All right, so there's a whole range of different printing modes over here that you can select, depending on what you feel will give your image the best output. Right, so there are other options here, anti-aliasing, input resolution, and a lot more controls that you don't see in a normal printing dialog when you're printing from Lightroom or Photoshop, because this is an Epson RIP. So it does have a lot more control over the printer as opposed to a normal driver. All right, so these are more for image resizing. So next, what I want to check is the color settings. So over here, it's confirmed that my input profile is Adobe RGB, and my rendering intent should be relative colorimetric with black point compression turned on. And my output, I need to confirm also that it is using glossy paper. After we confirm the color settings, right, I want to take this time to introduce a little bit about this new spectrophotometer that Epson is developing. It's a very compact piece of equipment. I seldom see spectrals that are so small, and they are able to do everything that we expect out of a spectral, which is normally much bigger. This one, I'm told, can connect by Bluetooth to a phone, and connect to an app where I can do color measurements on surfaces like some paint surfaces or some corporate color surfaces, like when you have a product and you want the product to be when you want the printout of the product to be the exact same color as the real life product that you have, you can use this to take a spot color reading and use the Epson RIB to replace some of the product colors in the images, in case the output isn't what you want. And it also has a lot of other features that will be developed in due time. All right, so stay tuned for more updates from Epson. All right, so moving on. All right, so once I've confirmed everything, I will now go over to the printer to change out the paper to the glossy paper, and then we can make our print. All right? Cool. Okay, so now I'll be doing a paper change from the Epson Hot Press Bright to the Epson Glossy. Right, so first I have to access the paper settings. Eject the paper. So this is a pretty new part that Epson has kind of innovated for its newest line of printers. It's a sealed environment for the roll paper, so that no dust gets in. But because we all know that dust is very irritating. If you find them, peppering your paper as the print is happening, sometimes we have to do entire prints because we left out one spot that a piece of whatever was covering when a print is going on. All right, so first I'm going to get a piece of paper to help me hold this in place. Hang on a bit. So it's very easy to change paper nowadays. Last time I remember with my 11880, there's a gigantic spindle across the whole printer, so we have to take it out, we have to pull apart the spindle out from the paper core. Now it's just so easy, but it's been like this for the past I think 2-3 generations of printers, and I'm very happy for the change. So this is our hot press. All right, goes to one side. Okay, here's the glossy. Same thing. Goes in, it clips on very easily. First thing, I'll always want to inspect if there's any coat edges or any dust or dirt that I want to prevent getting into the printer. Alright, so if you can see here, I've just initiated the load sequence. There'll be one screen here that says, okay, this is what I should be doing, and there's this little icon here that's like a musical note that's telling me that if I insert the paper deep enough, there'll be a sound, and that's all I need to do. Alright, so I hear the sound, I press complete, and it will load by itself. Okay, I have to cover. And then there it goes. So I have to change the paper type to glossy. Okay. So from what I understand, that this generation of printer will automatically adjust the skew and the position of the paper, so we don't really have to worry much. I remember last time I had to tension the paper manually using my hands, left and right, skew and everything. It was pretty manual, so with this generation is very automatic. I'm still getting used to it, but everything is positive so far. Looks like it loaded without any problems. Let's get back to the print. Okay, so now with everything confirmed, I will click print. And so it's put into the print queue. Okay, so now I'll head over to the printer to see how it turns out. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so now the image is coming over to the printer. So this is a glossy print, and glossy is it's both very nice because glossy images are very punchy, very contrasty, and it looks very good on the eyes. But it's also very tricky to make. So as before, I'm looking out for any problems that may come out at the start of the print, any piece of dust that's blocking the nozzle or the ink or anything. I'm ensuring that the basket is retracted so it doesn't block the print from coming out, because for fine art prints we do not want the print to be falling into the basket, as there's a chance of it getting scratched, especially for glossy prints. Glossy prints has a very high chance of getting scratched by anything. The surface is pretty delicate. Right, so also for glossy prints, we want to print at higher DPIs or slower speeds because they are so, unforgiving. So if there's any problems or any little inconsistencies between the data that is being sent to the printer, or if the printing speed is too high, you'll see some artifacts like bending and yeah, that is pretty undesirable in my opinion, and I will always do a reprint if I spot any of those. So this is my actual normal routine. I will always wait at the printer and look at the print as it comes out because I want to be sure that there is no problem whatsoever with the image itself. If I spot any problems, I will kill the print immediately and I'll restart. So for fine art printing, where our desire for perfection is pretty high, there's actually quite a high cost involved because of all the prints that we end up destroying just to get one that's right. So having a good printer and having a good workflow will reduce the chances of those happening, but it's also up to the skill and experience of the printmaker to ensure that it doesn't happen too often, because yeah, it's bad for business. All right, very nice, very nice. I think glossy paper suits this photograph better than matte paper. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with how this turns out, because glossy prints are always quite hard to make. All right, I guess that marks the end of my print demonstration and sharing session. I'm glad you spent the time with me. watching this, and I'll hand the time back to Desmond. See ya.
Thank you, James, for your insightful sharing. As James mentioned, Epson will be launching our very first portable color spectrophotometer, SD10, very soon. And I'd like to take this opportunity to share a little more. Epson aims to provide a total print solution to all our users, on top of the powerful precision core printhead technology coupled with our genuine inks. Our software such as the Epson HPrint Pro helps complete the print workflow. And with the introduction of the SD10, we aim to provide users with a right tool to help increase productivity when it comes to a color management. And that means it can ideally help users to save time on color matching work and eliminate repeated steps, reduce and minimize unnecessary costs such as overheads and materials or consumables. Most importantly, allowing users to have a standardized color matching printing workflow that is simple to execute. In an analog workflow without the SD10 before mass production, multiple printing of samples, visual checking, and correction is required before concluding the correct colors for prints. Time and printing materials are wasted due to multiple confirmation rounds, making it impractical and environmentally not friendly. However, with the SD10, all you will need is just to get accurate color values with a simple click of a button. After getting the measurement values, you can key them inside your RIP software, and you will be able to achieve accurate color reproduction during prints. By doing so, you can save up to approximately 300 minutes in a day and about 100 hours in a month. With the amount of time saved, you can better work on pre-production requirements. At just only 186 grams, this feature-packed device is very lightweight and portable. Epson provides you with a storage case and strap to enhance the portability while protecting the device. A lens shutter is located at the lens area to prevent dust from accumulating at the lens. What's even better? The built-in battery that can last up to approximately 8 hours of usage. You do not need to worry about connecting your device to a power supply at all times. Below is an overview of the function and features one will get to enjoy while adopting the SD10. The SD10 does color measurement either using the spot or drag and pull method. And this can be done using the measurement lens located at the rear of the machine. Connectivity can be done via Bluetooth to the Epson Spectrometer app or USB Type-C cable to your PC. The mobile app can accurately display the measure values in LEB values corresponding with HLC, RGB, LCH, and CMYK. These data can also be presented in their profile gamut too. You can also make a simple color comparison by checking against the measured values and the targeted printing criteria before print. Most importantly, these data will be automatically saved in chronological sequence to make it easier to retrieve your records. You can even group them under a project name that you are currently working on. If you are unsure, you can also use the color book to search for the closest color or mix them to achieve the targeted results. So, as you can see, this app can be helpful to improve your productivity. Please keep a close watch on our product webpage for more details. After today's webinar, I hope that you have gained better insights into how a total solution can help with your printing workflow. Before we end today's session, we would like you to participate in a short survey by scanning the QR code on the screen. You will also be directed to a survey page upon exiting this webinar. Your feedback will allow us to improve your experience for our future webinars. Finally, on behalf of the Epson team, we thank you for attending today's webinar. I hope to see all of you really soon.